What's up, guys? If you're worried about AI taking your job, then you've come to the right place because that is exactly what I'm talking about. And every time I come across an article that says something like this, they often have some like Terminator, something out of the Terminator, and this big evil robot with a gun looking like it's ready to kill all humans. And it's very inaccurate for many reasons. The main reason being that in order for there to be an evil robot that wants to kill all humans or whatever people say, in order for there to be an evil robot, somebody actually has to build the robot in the first place. Some people actually have to build some big, mean-looking, angry robot that wants to kill people. Um, the main evil, the more concern would be somebody using AI to create an evil app or an evil software, which, if you've watched Social Dilemma, that's kind of already happening with the current day and age we live in with social media. I could rant about that for 5 hours probably, but yeah, that would be a whole other video, so I'm going to get back on topic. And what originally inspired me, which was yesterday, to make this video is because I remember in 11th grade, we were told, or well, we had a class where we were supposed to plan out our career after high school and figure out what we wanted to study and all that stuff. And we were told as advice to avoid jobs that are at risk of being automated by machines. And the next year, in senior year, my economics teacher told us that we should, or that the reason why it's important to get an education is because an AI or machines or whatever he said, I don't remember, can take your job away. And, there's less educated jobs, like construction workers, he used as an example, are at higher risk being taken by machines. And that's not, from what I've read and what I've learned just from purely working on AI and studying this stuff, although I prefer to call it machine learning, I feel like it's more of an accurate term for what it is. But uh, what was I going to say? But anyway, through that experience, I've come to the conclusion that that's actually not even true. It's actually more the opposite that's true because the a lot of these white collar jobs are actually at very high risk of being automated. And just actually, I just said it, at high risk of being automated. And the reason is because the barriers to automating a job such as somebody working in marketing, where they can analyze customer data or analyze customers and kind of classify them in different groups and figure out how to target each person and stuff, or people, stockbrokers that sit back and predict the stock market to help manage people's investment funds, or a very wide variety of jobs like that often do require education, post high school like college education, are actually, I just said, at higher risk because because the barrier to entry is much lower. Crap, I'm repeating myself. Um, because here's why the barrier to entry is much lower. Because first of all, most of these algorithms are actually much better at doing stuff like that. Much better at they're much better at doing those kinds of things than they are at doing construction work. That's the first thing I've got to say about it. And then secondly, for this to actually, for the model, as they're called, to effectively be able to automate this job, they'd actually, all someone has to do is or should I say, integrate this AI into a software and distribute and sell that software. Which I say that like it's easy. It's obviously not an easy thing to do, but it is easy compared to what it would take to automate construction workers, or like the job I used to have working in the meat and seafood department stocking the meat case, cutting meat, rearranging the inventory to make it match the dates and all that stuff, and cleaning and all this crap. That's a much higher barrier because they have to first of all use an algorithm that's a very generalized algorithm. It's capable of doing nothing it does is very demanding, at least not intellectually demanding, let's say, but it just requires a very, very wide range of stuff that it can do and tasks. And there are things that can or at least come in close to being able to do that. But it's also the fact that someone has to build. Not only do they have to create the AI, which in itself is already harder to create the right AI for that than for the other types of jobs. But then you have to actually create a robot that is capable of doing those things, that won't fall apart and is actually a very human-like robot. And to do that, the company doing that would have to go through a lot of trial and error and fail a lot of times and create a lot of prototypes. And that would be a very expensive process for both for the company and creating these things, as well as the construction company or grocery store or whatever that would actually be in a position to automate these jobs and purchase these robots, because the robot is probably very expensive and costs much more than a human would. It would have to at least pay off within a couple years, and I don't really see that happening because this is relatively cheap labor, and these jobs are not paid are low paying jobs, and it's fairly cheap just to keep having people do it. Whereas these other jobs, the workers cost a lot more. And you've got jobs that require a lot of writing, a lot of analyzing, and things like that. Jobs can be paying 50 up to 100, even $150,000 a year, much costing a lot more, which costs the company a lot more. And it's you're basically on one side you're looking at an expensive worker to automate, a cheap worker, and on the other side you're looking at a very cheap worker to automate a pretty expensive worker. And it's easier. So I hope this kind of makes sense what I'm trying to get at and say. And it's just interesting because it's not what it's just seems like the reality of this topic is just pretty different from what they told us in school about it. So I felt like it may be a good idea to talk about this if you're maybe in high school and hearing these types of things. Now, unfortunately, I wish I had some great way to wrap this up and tell a person what they should be doing, but I really don't. It's just something I realized and I wanted to share it because I feel like the only way I've found this out is by spending a good chunk of time, about over a year now, studying AI and machine learning to come to this conclusion. So anyway, I like doing these videos. I'm probably going to start making more of them. And anyway, yeah, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.